And what are those two fortresses? He says, Ba'adam hamoch ve'alev. He says we have the fortress of our mind and the fortress of our heart that we need to conquer. Hashultim al kol taryag ha'evarim shel adam, because they control all the limbs of the body.
Elohai, neshama shenatata bi.
Those of you who are joining us, I'm recording here from the Holy Land, Eretz Israel, from Haifa, and where I'm going to spend till really the end of August. So I'm really, I'm really blessed to be here, and nice long stretch. Just finishing quarantine, and Rabbi is back in the holy city of
exile.
Exactly, of Rockland County and New York. So we're on the beautiful axis of New York, Israel, U.S. Israel, and here we go. It's the beginning of the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy. And why does Moshe Rabbeinu start his long drash, which is really the whole book of Devarim? And it mentions that this is after he had won the battle against Sichon and Og, the kings of the Amorites and the Bashan, I guess, Bashanites or whatever.
This book is also called Mishnah Torah, the repetition, because it's basically a review. Although, interestingly, you have over 70 new mitzvahs in this book. So it's not exactly precisely a review. However, it begins with a review of the events. And this entire book, just one more point, because it's so interesting to me.
Sure.
The first 4 books are from the beginning of creation until the year 2488. Approximately. This whole book is said in 36 days.
Just to clarify that when you say 2000, you're talking about the Hebrew calendar as opposed to 5,780.
Yes. The point is, it's from the beginning of time,
that's right,
of creation, until this moment. And this book, the entire book, 12 parsons, whatever it is said by Moshe in the last 36 days of his life, from the beginning of Shvat until his Petira on the 7th day of Adar.
But I think what you're saying, Eli, is important, because it does say here, the Pasuk is going to say, when we'll jump into this in a moment, Ho'il Moshe Be'er et HaTorah Azot Le'emor. So the Be'er is not Mishnah, it's not Shana, but he's actually interpreting, right? So what you're saying,
explaining, and as the Slonimer will say, he's going to be only now able to reveal something that was hidden prior to this
in the previous books.
And they've had the Torah for 40 years.
That's right.
But there was something about it that they didn't get the full effect and benefit of it until now. And the Slonimer beautifully is going to tie this in to the events
that's right,
that had just previously occurred.
That's right. And the core question in this teaching is why is the Torah mentioning that, particularly that the beginning of this book is Dafka after they conquer these two kingdoms of Sichon and Og, and there's going to be a lot of Musar and some Kabbalah in there. So we'll jump into that. Let's just do it. And before we jump in, I just wanted to again mention to those of you who may have the book, Netivot Shalom, Rabbi Shalom Noach Berzhovsky, the late of Jerusalem, the Slonimer Rebbe, as he's called. And we are on page Yud Aleph. And we're going to skip a little bit. Let us know as we're skipping. We're going to read paragraphs on page Yud Aleph, Yud Bet, and Yud Gimel. And here we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You picked a beautiful long piece of the Slonimer this week. I hope it won't take 36 days.
We'll try to keep it under 36 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. אלה הדברים אשר דיבר משה אל כל ישראל בעבר הירדן וגומר. These are the things, this is the quote from Deuteronomy, beginning of the Parsha. And these are the things that Moses spoke to the people, to all of Israel, on the other side of on the banks of the Jordan. אחרי הכותו את סיחון מלך האמורי, אשר יושב בחשבון. After he had beaten in battle Sichon, the king of the Amorites, who was residing in Heshbon, that was his capital city. V'et Og melech HaBashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, etc. V'gomer, ho'il Moshe ba'er et haTorah azot le'emor. At this time, Moses was able to clarify or interpret the Torah, this Torah, as it says, and so on and so forth. So, יש לבאר מה דכתוב אחרי הכותו את סיחון מלך האמורי ואת אוג מלך הבשן. So the Slonimer says we need to clarify why does it say after Moses has beaten in battle Sichon melech haEmori, the king Sichon, and Og melech HaBashan, the king Og. שמשמע מזה שמשה לא היה יכול לבאר את התורה רק עתה. And he's answering and he's saying, we learn from this that it wasn't until the victory of these specific battles that Moses was able to share this message. There's something about these battles that enables Moses to finally, as he said, reveal the secrets and interpret the Torah that they have had for 40 years in this new and, I would say, kind of legacy way, because he's, as we know, he's going to pass away and he's leaving his legacy here. So this it has a certain importance here, right? In that sense. All right. So we'll continue. ויש לומר בזה על דרך קושיה במאמר הכתוב in Tehillim. So, and we can learn about this from another text that's written in the Psalms, specifically Psalm Kuf Lamed Vav 136, and it says as follows: "Lamake melachim gdolim ki lo'olam chasdo," to the one who has defeated great kings, may his loving kindness stand forever. And we know this formula, Kilo Olam Chasdo. We have it. We repeat that in the prayer, and it continues. Vayaharog melachim adirim, and he killed great kings. Kilo Olam Chasdo, his loving kindness stands forever. And later it says in the same psalm, לסיחון מלך האמורי כי לעולם חסדו ולאוג מלך הבשן כי לעולם חסדו. Then it mentions specifically Sichon, the king of the Amorite, because his loving kindness stands forever. This is God, referring to God. ולאוג מלך הבשן כי לעולם חסדו, and to Og, the king of Bashan. ולכאורה מדוע פורטים אותם אחר שהם כלולים באומרו למכה מלכים גדולים. So the question is, why are they specifically being mentioned? Aren't they included? Haven't they been included when it said God who defeated the great kings, etc.? אלא דעניין סיחון ואוג שהם היו בית הקליפות הקשות ביותר. But we're beginning to learn from this that it was important to mention Sichon ve'og because they were the two Kelipot, this is a Kabbalistic term of shells, meaning they're connected to the kind of obstacle or impurity, something that divides, a divider between us and Hashem. So these two were the two hardest shells to crack. There you go. שישבו על מפתחי ארץ ישראל ולא הניחו לישראל להיכנס לתוכה. Since they resided right at the entrance to Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, ולא הניחו לישראל להיכנס לתוכה, and they were an obstacle preventing Israel from going into the Holy Land. So now we see the importance of these two kings that are mentioned both in the Psalms and mentioned in our Parsha and Devarim. Kedeita b'Chazal, this is from the Midrash, as is brought by our sages in the Midrash, Shem shamru al hazayin amamin shebe'eretz Yisrael. They were guarding the 7 peoples of the land of Israel, the Canaanites and Amorites and Perizzites and Jebusites, etc., etc. ולקח בית קליפות אלו, היה משה רבנו בעצמו צריך לשבור. And because of this, these 2 Kelipot, these 2 obstacles, were upon Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, he himself to crack, to handle. He had to eliminate these obstacles. And you can see now that he's sliding, the Slonimer is sliding from the actual, the strategic and the practical into the mystical as well. So you can already see he's starting to build a metaphor here, how everything in the actual factual events are really hinting to the processes that happen within each person. And as he bringing another references, our sages in Brachot Gimel Daled, Nun Daled, in the Gemara, he quotes, "Minyan harigat Og melech habashan sherak Moshe yachol leachri'o." The Gemara tells us that the elimination of Og, the king of Bashan, was only a match for Moses to defeat. Ki klipa zo hi hachazaka biyoter she klipa al tivit, because the klipa of Og was a supernatural klipa, and it was the hardest one, it's the most challenging one. ולכן גם מכל המלכים הגדולים האדירים מזכיר בנפרד את סיחון ואוג. That's why they are specifically mentioned from all the great kings. They are mentioned by name. וכן בפסוק כאן בתחילת הפרשה אינו מזכיר את שאר המלחמות כמלחמת מדיין. This is why when the book, the parsha begins, it doesn't mention all the different battles they've had on their way through the desert, like with Midian, and there was others with Amalek, etc.
Even Amalek, who what's the worst clipper you can think of? So the first one that would come to mind is Amalek, but even in the battle with Amalek, it was able to be done through surrogates.
That's right.
Right? Shua was out there was actual soldiers and whatnot. Whereas there's something about this clip of Sichan and Eig, and I think you hinted to it. This is at the cusp of the entrance to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel.
That's right.
And there's something. Now I'm thinking about a person takes a lot of steps towards succeeding at their goal, and then they get right up to where they're about to taste success.
Yeah.
And then something happens psychologically.
That's right.
I think it's a common thing, and we sabotage ourselves so that we somehow don't cross that threshold. We sort of back off, go to the side. Well, maybe I'm not that good at this. Maybe I won't succeed. Maybe I'll end up failing.
That's right.
And so it's interesting that there's something about that penultimate moment where we're making some kind of a spiritual, psychological breakthrough, and then we end up falling on our face. And this seems to be what we're speaking about here.
Maybe I'm thinking about you as a musician, that the worst rehearsal is right before the best performance. ויש לומר על דרך העבודה עניין קליפת סיחון ואוג, שם הקליפה החזקה ביותר המתעוררת בעת שיהודי עומד כבר להגיע ליהודו ותפקידו. So, says the Slonimer, and from the perspective of the avoda, the spiritual the spiritual journey, the the meaning or the essence of the klipa of Sichon ve'og, which are the hardest klipa, is just like you just said, it's triggered when a person is just about to attain their true purpose and their true destiny. שאז ישנו כוח הקליפה המונע בידו ואינו מניחו להשיג ייעודו. That's when the power, the force of the klipa, of the obstacle, you can say the obstacle, capital T, capital O, right? It's kind of this archetypal obstacle, klipa, that will come and prevent you from taking that last step. So we're going to skip now to the next column on page Yud Aleph, for those of you who are following, and in the middle of that first paragraph, V'rak acharei hakotot, it's about, I think, 6 lines down. V'rak acharei hakotot et Sichon melech ha'Amori v'et Og melech ha'Bashan, and only after he defeats, I'm presuming that it's Moses, את סיחון מלך האמורי ואת אוג מלך הבשן, King Sichon and Og, לאחר שכנע משה את הקליפה הזאת, after Moshe defeats this klipa, הואיל משה באר את התורה הזאת, then Moses is available to offer the special commentary on this Torah. והיו יכולים לקבל את התורה ולהשיג את אור התורה. And then also the people of Israel were now available to receive and to attain the light of this Torah. So there was a readiness that both Moshe did not have until this point, until conquering this klipa, and the people of Israel did not have until this point. ונפתח להם הפתח של ארץ ישראל והתורה, and there was this opening for them to both enter the land of Israel and to enter Torah in, I guess you could say, enter Torah for real or in a deeper way, because obviously they've had the same text, they've had it for 40 years. So, which is in and of itself is interesting, that you think you know Torah. I always think I know Torah. But the next reading is, I wasn't yet ready, now I really get it, But then the next reading, now I think I,
Right. It also is, there seems to be, what is he revealing to them? So it seems that there were there's desert Torah and there's land of Israel Torah, which we've spoken about, the Slonimer has spoken about this before. And they're two very different things. So now that they're literally actually within a few months now going to be literally crossing into land and starting the battles for the land of Eretz Yisrael. So now Moshe had to show them what the land of Israel, what the earthly Torah is, as opposed to the desert heavenly.
All right. So we're going to continue now on page Yud Bet. And it's a second paragraph on the page, and it starts Uve'od ofen yesh lomar. So that's the next paragraph where, for those of you who are following. Uve'od ofen yesh lomar al pi ma shebe'arnu kama pa'amim sheyesh bekomat ha'adam tachti'im, shni'im, v'shlishiyim. And as we have mentioned before many times, this is a Slonimer, speaking, that in the levels of the interior of a person, there are the lowest, the levels, the 3 levels, the lowest level, the intermediate level, and the third level, which is the higher level. Ha'evarim, halev v'moach. Those are, the lowest is the physicality, the intermediate is the heart, or you could say the feelings, and the higher is the mind, hamoach. And parallel to that, Bet HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, was built in the same fashion with 3 levels. So you had the lower, intermediate, and higher. That in the entrance to the Holy Temple outside, there was the outside courtyard and the first altar. שכנגד זה נאמר אש תמיד תוגד על המזבח ולא תכבה. And on this altar there was an eternal fire that was never extinguished. תחילה עבודה היא על ידי אש תמיד תוגד על המזבח. So the beginning of the service when one enters the temple is through fire, eternal fire, שהוא אש אוכלת אש, which follows the principle of fire burns fire. And what does he mean here? What does it mean fire burns fire? ומרומז בה כנגד האיברים, הדור התאוות, that this is the fire of the altar is there to transform the fire of the flesh, which is the seat of the lower desires. So you see how we're sliding right into the metaphor about the spiritual work. And so obviously you can see where this is going. So what is that lower level with that is the seat of the lower desires? No, that is the Kelipot, right? So you can see where he's going with that. That's parallel, and that needs to be conquered. And I'm skipping like a couple lines. And the same parallel is he's paralleling that with the land of Israel, or the entering land of Israel. So that in the right outside of the land of Israel, there was, which is on the bank of the Jordan River, which is the eastern bank of the Jordan River, were Sichon ve'og, these two kings, Sichon ve'og, Hainu medor Kelipot. So they were the lower level of the Kelipot. וכדאית בספרים הקדושים שסיחון ואוג הם מידות יסוד ומלכות. And as it is brought in the holy books, that Sichon ve'og are the Sephirot of Yesod and Malchut, foundation and kingdom. ורק אחרי הכותרת אוג וסיחון, but we need to understand this is the Kelipot of those Sephirot, because every Sephirah has a light side and has a Kelipot side, has the spark side and has the shell side, according to Kabbalah. So, and what's interesting about Yesod and Malchut is Yesod and Malchut parallel the groin, the sexual organs in the body, and then Malchut is the feet, is the lowest part of the body in Adam Kadmon. So you see that this is all this is where are in those Sephirot where we're at our most vulnerable. We're most vulnerable, we're most challenged, right? Because the Yesod is communication, intimacy, it's the whole relationships that like nothing can go wrong in relationships, right? it's like we're vulnerable there, and we're vulnerable with earthly matters, with whatever has to do with actual physicality, with with greed and materiality, etc. And through Moses shattering the power of their Kelipot, then Moses becomes available to interpret the Torah and share. And this opened a gate for them to attain the holiness of both the land of Israel and the holiness of the Torah. והתורה הקדושה מלמדת לנו בזה כי תפקידו הראשון של יהודי הוא לשבר את כוח התאוות שבמדור התאוות. And with this, the Torah is teaching us that the first task for a Jew, for a person who's on a spiritual journey, is to shatter the power of the lower desires, which is in the desire space, Mador Tavot. It's like a little more in detail, what is it that we need to conquer, and what is the actual work of, what does it look like to conquer lower desires. So we're on the second column on page Yud Gimel on the top, on the left-hand side. It starts with Ha'inyan ha'mivtzarim ha'ikariim be'adam. So he says, and the issue of the fortresses, of the main fortresses in a person, and since we skipped a lot, just to summarize, when he talks about fortresses, he's talking about the fortresses of Og and Sichon, right? So the mashal here, or the Torah here, is that they conquered these fortified cities of these two kings, right? So he says that, so they're a metaphor to fortresses within our own psyche. And what are those two fortresses? He says, Ba'adam hamoch ve'alev. He says we have the fortress of our mind and the fortress of our heart that we need to conquer. Ashultim al kol taryag ha'evarim shel adam, because they control all the limbs of the body, just like the two fortresses control the entrance to the land of Israel. Right? That's the metaphor. שכדי להגיע לשלמות בחינת הכניסה לארץ ישראל צריך יהודי לשלוט על המוח וללב בשלטון הקדושה. In order for a Jew to reach the wholeness, which is the bchina of, which is the aspect, the energy of the entry into the promised land, Eretz Israel, צריך יהודי לשלוט, a person should have mastery over one's mind and one's heart. B'shilton ha'kedusha, mastery of holiness. B'vchinat leman tito be'yadecha, in the sense of so God will give it to you, God will grant it to you. U'cheneged zeh hi mitzvat tefillin ha'kolelet bet inyanim elu, and for that we have the mitzvah of tefillin. We put one next to the heart and one in the mind, in order to master the desires of our mind and the desires of our heart and transform them, put them to work towards the spiritual work. That means that, because tefillin is a daily practice, that means that every day we need to master that kind of mind and heart over the lower desires of physicality, and dedicate these two fortresses towards God's work. And this is the task, the work. This is the task of the work of any Jewish person, any spiritual seeker. The Alter Rebbe, the Chabad, the founder of Chabad, he was very big on Chabad. Chochmah Bina B'Dat is the mastery of the higher Sefirot over the lower Sefirot, mastery of mind in the expanded sense over the rest of the functionality and the experience of being human, and that's a deep practice. It's a deep way to view one's sort of, like you said, the chazon. The chazon is to come to that place where my life is not running me, but I am running my life because I have a consciousness that's skillful enough and expansive enough to do that with God's help.
This Shabbos is special. The Shabbos, every Shabbos is special, but the Shabbos particularly so. Yeah. It has a name, Shabbos Chazon. Yeah. I just want to say quickly, we're in the period of time called the 3 weeks between the fast day of 17 Tammuz and the fast day of 9 Menachem Av, which is a time of mourning for the Jewish people as a community for the destruction of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem and the exile. Yeah. And these 3 weeks are a time of introspection and reflection on our national exile. Mm-hmm. But the Shabbos prior to the 9th of Av has a name. It's called the Shabbos of Vision. Simply because the Haftorah starts with the word Chazon Yeshayahu, the vision of Isaiah. But the Berditchever says that it's really called Shabbos Chazon because on this Shabbos, every single Jew in the world, no matter who he is, no matter where he is, what level he's on, is shown a vision of the third temple. He explained it with a quick mashal. He said there was a child who was given as a present a new suit for their birthday, whatever it is, by their father. The next day, the father sees the kid in the suit of clothes, and he rips it. He had ripped it to shreds, and it's playing or whatever. He said, "What happened?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. He's okay. He bought him a new suit." Sure enough, a few days later, he sees the kid comes in. The pants are ripped. The shirt. What happened? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. He said, "Okay." He buys him a third beautiful suit, but he doesn't give it to him. He puts it in a glass encasement, puts it in the kitchen, and he says, "You see that beautiful suit? You show me you know how to treat it."
That's right.
And I'm going to break the glass.
That's right.
And give you the suit.
That's right.
So the nimshal, of course, is self-evident. We had one temple, we blew it. We had a second temple, we blew it.
And we're not going to get the
Every year
third.
we're shown in our mind a vision of this beautiful third temple. What it could be, for what it means for us spiritually, physically, all together, doing our thing, the highest levels of spirituality. So Hashem should bless us all that this Shabbos we should really see that in our mind's eye, so to speak, and really want that. And all of us together do what we all need to do by working on the things that the Slonimer spoke about today, that Hashem should look down and say, "Oh," and we don't know which one of us is going to be the one to push us over the plateau, to push us into the land.
That's right. That's right.
Who's going to be the one to break the Kelipot, Sichon, or Aik? It could be a Jew anywhere in the world. The tiniest thing, the tiniest thing, and boom.
And I love your kavanah. Really, this Shabbos is Mesugal. This is a good Shabbos to really spend some time considering not what is. What is, there's just a lot of CRAP flying around. I don't want to, overextend my language here, but imagine just focusing on the vision and what could be. And this is a good Shabbos to meditate on that and create our spiritual skills to. I like what you said about any one of us could be the one who tips everybody over towards that third temple.
That's it.
A temple for everybody, for all people. It's not a temple that we have to fight over.
No, for everybody. For all sentient beings.
Amen. Thank you, everybody. Shalom for now, and come back next Wednesday. We'll keep doing this, God willing, 9 o'clock in the morning. See you all then. Shalom for now.